There's something I hear constantly from real estate agencies. The leads are bad. And maybe they are, but how do you know? Is it based on feeling? Is it based on thoughts? Or is it based on exact data? Because in 9 out of 10 cases, when I sit down with a real estate business and ask them to show me their numbers, they can't. They don't know their cost per lead, they don't know their pickup rate, they don't know their cost per appointment, their sales closing rate, or their return on advertising budget. And in some cases, they don't even know what they spend on marketing. They actually know nothing, except for the feeling that they are not getting results. And that is the real problem. You cannot fix what you cannot measure. And if you're not measuring all marketing and sales numbers, you're not optimizing, you're guessing. You're gambling with your marketing budget, and you're gambling with your business. Without tracking data, it's impossible to grow a business predictably. At Lead Estate, step 5 of our growth formula is all about tracking data. And I'll be honest with you, this is the step that separates the agencies and developers that grow from the ones that stay stuck in the same negative loop forever. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what to track, why it matters, and what the numbers actually tell you. So let's get into the video. And just like the other videos in this series, this is part of a complete growth formula series. Every step of our formula has its own dedicated video on our channel. And if you want to understand the full system from lead generation all the way to closing deals and growing your real estate company, go to our channel, subscribe, and watch the full series. It's the most complete data-driven growth system built specifically for real estate. But right now, let's talk about the numbers. I speak to real estate agencies and developers every single day. And for 95%, the same is true. They are simply not tracking the data. And this is simply costing them leads, appointments, and deals. And on the other hand, we have companies convincing you that they are tracking the data, but actually not the data that will actually bring you results. They're only tracking vanity metrics. And tracking vanity metrics means tracking the numbers that actually don't really make an impact on your business or on optimizing the process. Vanity metrics are calculating the cost per click, the amount of clicks, how many website visitors, how many leads, how much leads you got compared to last week, how much website visitors you got compared to last week. I'm not saying that this data is completely irrelevant, but this data is only relevant if you can connect it to the sales data. I can generate you hundreds of leads, but what does it matter if they don't convert into appointments? And those appointments don't convert into deals. Then every month you get a very nice summary of all the clicks and all the leads that are generated, but in the end it will result into nothing. For marketing and sales process to work, it's essential that you track all the data, from cost per lead, to pickup rate, to conversion rate, to closing rate, to revenue generated, and to return on investment. And of course, not tracking your data will result in less deals. But in this video, I really want to make you understand why. Because it's not as simple as just converting less of your leads into appointments, but it's actually also about not being able to optimize the process based on real data, which will decrease your results from marketing even more. So what specific metrics do you actually want to calculate in order to create an effective process? Of course, it's true that the more you track, the better. But in this video, I'm going to cover the most important ones. First of all, you want to know your marketing budget, the exact budget that you're spending on your entire marketing or on advertising. Then you want to calculate your cost per lead. How much does it cost to generate one new contact? And therefore calculating how much leads you've generated as well. And then we move over to the follow-up process, following up with leads to schedule qualified appointments. And there's 2 metrics that are important there. First, it's the pickup rate. What percentage of the leads that you've generated has actually responded to you or picked up the phone? The second KPI that you want to track in your follow-up process is the actual conversion rate from lead to appointment. What percentage of leads actually converts into a qualified appointment with a prospect that's qualified on budget, time frame, and that they actually want to schedule an appointment and talk to you. What most marketing companies and lead generators do is they base the quality of the lead on the cost per lead. But what you need to do is base the quality of the lead on the conversion rate from lead to qualified appointment. And that makes all the difference. Imagine you generate 100 leads, and in the marketing form, all 100 people have said, I have a minimum of 500,000 budget, I want to buy within 6 months, and I want to schedule an appointment. What most marketing companies do is they say, hey, look, we have generated 100 100 quality leads. But when is a lead quality? When they filled something out in a form, or when you confirmed that what they filled out in the form is actually true. Because all these 100 people could not answer the phone or not be interested at all, and therefore you don't make any sales. So therefore the quality of the lead is measured by the conversion rate from lead to qualified appointment. You only know when a lead is qualified if you verify it by phone or by WhatsApp. Then we also want to track the sales data, which means tracking how many appointments actually turn into deals. And one metric that's essential is the show up rate, because I can schedule a lot of appointments in your calendar and say that they're qualified, but if none of them show up, then are they that qualified? And therefore you want to calculate the show up rate. Then from the show up rate, you want to calculate the closing rate. So how many people that have showed up for the appointment actually turn into a deal. And because of the long-term sales cycle in real estate, this can take a while to actually calculate perfectly, but it's essential to know how your team is performing. Imagine you have a real estate agency and you have 4 sales agents. How can you know who's performing best if you don't track this data? And maybe you realize that one of your sales agents is actually performing way better than the others, and one of your sales agents is not performing at all. Based on this data, you have some tough decisions to make. These are the 6 main KPIs that you want to track. However, there's an extra 7th that you want to track as well, which is the eventual ROI. The return on investment that you actually make from your marketing campaigns. How much have I spent? And how much revenue and profit did I actually get in return? This is the most essential, because why would you do marketing if you don't get a return on investment? And what I see happening all the time is that real estate companies do marketing based on a specific marketing budget that's based on the revenue that they made last year. And they say, hey, we have this much money for marketing. But the only thing that you actually need to do is spend money intentionally, making sure that you get a return on investment. Because if you get a return on investment on your marketing budget can be infinite. Because you know that for every €1 you spend, you get €10 back. That is the goal of client acquisition. So why do these metrics matter? Why does it matter? Why is it so important to track these KPIs and not just go with the flow? The first thing is that everything is connected. It's not marketing and sales, it's client acquisition. And your cost per lead and your conversion rate from lead to appointment has a direct influence on the return on investment that you're making. And by able to track all the data instead of just the vanity metrics, you can actually make decisions that are based on the entire process instead of just on cost per lead. Because like I said, the cost per lead is only relevant to the conversion metrics. I can generate a €10 cost per lead and celebrate that we have a cheap cost per lead. But if we only convert 2% of these leads into appointments, a cost per lead of €10 is not that good. But if you increase your cost per lead to, let's say, €50 and your conversion rate suddenly changes to 15%, that's when you have an effective process. And that's how you see that everything is connected. Another important point as to why it's important to track this data is if you don't track data, how can you know that when you make a change in your process, what the effect of that change is? So if I now have a conversion rate from lead to appointment of 10% and I make a change in the advertisement while keeping the same follow-up protocol, and suddenly my conversion rate goes up to 15%, then I know that this change in the advertisement has had a positive effect on our conversion numbers. But if you don't know this conversion number and you make a change in the advertisements, then you don't actually know if something has improved or not improved. Another very important reason on why you should track all this data is so that your sales team can actually give feedback to your marketing team. Because we already discussed that the quality of the leads are defined by the sales data, your marketing team should actually optimize their advertisements and optimize their marketing processes based on this sales data. So it's essential to give this feedback to the marketing team. Tracking data is also essential because you can actually see if you're off track or on track to hit the goals that you've set. In a previous video, we've talked about point A and point B and being extremely specific on that point B. Well, if you don't track data, how do you know if you're on track or off track to hit this point B? And if you're off track, based on this data, you can make corrections to make sure that you get on track again. And being on track or off track can also be in a specific area or a specific step in this process. And that is why tracking data also helps you to see how your team is performing and if they're actually following protocol. You can see if they're hitting their targets or underperforming and make your conclusions and decisions based on that. And lastly, if you don't track all this data while implementing a marketing and sales process, then you're probably too late when you find out that the process or a specific strategy is simply not working, wasting money in the process. So now you know which metrics to track and why it's important to track them. I want to talk briefly about what the actual numbers are that you want to be looking for. I'm not going to talk about a specific cost per lead in this video, because a cost per lead is only relevant to the conversion data. What you want to be looking for in the conversion data is, first of all, the pickup rate. You want your pickup rate to be between 60 to 70% minimum. 60 is acceptable, 70% is on the high end. So 60 to 70% of the leads that you've generated, you want them to answer or respond to your messages or calls. Then you want your lead to appointment conversion rate to be between 15 to 20%. Because if it's 5%, your team needs to call and contact 20 people to actually schedule an appointment, which is very inefficient. So the ideal spot we found is between 15 and 20%, and sometimes a bit higher than 20%. But this is what you should aim for at the bare minimum. In terms of conversion from appointment to deal, that's all up to your sales skills and all the things that we've talked about in the winning deals video of this series. But you always want to aim for a minimum conversion of 10% from appointment to deal. And if you combine all of these conversion metrics, there's one metric and one number that is quite normal in real estate. From all of the leads that you generated, about 1 to 3% actually converts into a deal. So for every 100 leads you generate, you will only close 1 to 3 deals, which is important to know. So you have the right expectations when you generate leads. Of course, this is different for referrals and people from your own network. I'm talking here about implementing marketing and advertising campaigns. So as you can see here at Lead Estate, we've built out a complete tracker that's custom built by us for our clients, where we track all the numbers in real time that we've discussed in this video. As you can see, you have the marketing budget, the cost per lead, the conversion rates, the pickup rates, and the eventual return on investment. And by tracking all of this data in real time, we can provide the ultimate A to Z solution for our clients and optimize the process based on real numbers. As you know, in a previous video, we've talked about hitting your point B, hitting your goals, and then being able to reverse engineer all the sales, all the appointments, all the leads, and all the conversion metrics that you need to hit. So every year you make a projection towards the goal that you want to hit. You set specific conversion numbers and specific targets. And by tracking this data, you can literally see if you're on or off track and where you need to optimize. If you don't track the data in your client acquisition process, you are lost and you will never be able to grow measurably and predictably. And everything you do is based on thoughts and feelings, and that will not scale your real estate business. So if you're not tracking data, or if you're only tracking vanity metrics, make sure that you start implementing this and start tracking this data now. It will not only make a massive impact in the short run, but imagine if you do this for years and years to come. That is how you grow your real estate business. Thank you for watching this video. I will see you in the next one. And if you want to see more of our videos on this channel, make sure that you subscribe to the channel and watch all of our other videos. And also don't forget to watch the next video, which is the last video of this growth formula series, because you can have all the first 5 steps implemented perfectly. If you don't implement what we're going to talk about in the next video, you will not get results. So I will see you there.